from Arizona.
Mr. President, what are we doing here? Seriously, I'm still waiting for somebody to tell me how this makes sense. We are debating a budget that gives another round of tax cuts to billionaires and giant corporations on the backs of everyday Americans. And it also adds trillions of dollars to our national debt. That doesn't make any sense to me. And it doesn't make sense to the Arizonans that I've been hearing from in every corner of our state. If you grew up in a household like mine, where money was tight, you would know that budgets are about priorities. I can still picture my mom sitting at the kitchen table trying to figure out which bills to pay. You take the money you have and you put it where it's needed. This budget clearly tells the American people who President Trump and Republicans in Washington need help. If you're a billionaire, it says, we've got your back. But if you're a parent trying to provide for your family, a senior in a nursing home, or a child who counts on school for your only hot meal, you're on your own. This isn't about balancing the books. It's about picking winners and letting everybody else fall behind. And who loses? It's the Americans working 2 jobs, raising kids, caring for elderly parents, and just trying to stay afloat. Because if you grew up in a family like mine, you also know how hard people work to reach their American dream. The promise that if you work hard, that your kids will get a good public education, you'll be able to put food on the table, and you'll be able to go to the doctor and stay healthy, and your kids will be able to grow up and achieve their own American dream. This promise is already getting harder, and it's getting more expensive. We need to be working together across the aisle to ensure that everyone who works hard can have a brighter future. But that's not what my Republican colleagues are doing with this bill. The plan that they are jamming through right now will put the American dream out of reach for more families. And for what? To hand out more tax breaks to people with more wealth than they could spend in 10 lifetimes. Now, Mr. President, I've spent the last several months traveling across Arizona. I've been to our big cities, Phoenix and Tucson. I've been to small towns like Clarkdale and Sierra Vista, talking to Arizonans face to face, listening to their stories, hearing what it would mean to them if Medicaid, food assistance, and other essential services got cut for them and their families. And what I've heard is clear. This budget is going to make it harder for them to stay afloat, let alone get ahead. In Clarksdale, I met a guy named Christian. He's a rural hospital nephrologist. That's a kidney doctor. And he told me that his patients, many of whom rely on Medicaid for dialysis, are now considering stopping treatment altogether because they might not be able to afford it. He said, this is a quote from Christian, he said, financially, none of the patients I serve can pay out of pocket. It's a choice of either massive debt or death. That's the reality to many rural communities. Another woman told me about her friend a survivor of 2 car accidents and a spinal injury. Her friend relies on Medicaid to help her deal with her chronic pain. Without it, meaning Medicaid, she said that her friend might end her life because the pain is unbearable. She asked me to deliver this message to my colleagues. She said, "This is not a country that can't afford to care for people like her. We can afford to care for everyone if we change our priorities from giving tax cuts to billionaires to taking care of Americans who are in pain every day." Mr. President, people across Arizona are pleading with us to get our priorities right. In Sierra Vista, I hosted a Medicaid town hall, and that's where I met this woman named Tara. She told us how she was once a single mother and how programs like Medicaid and SNAP helped her raise her kid and build a stable life. Today, she works a good job. She doesn't rely on these programs anymore. But here's what she said. She said, "I am deeply concerned about the proposed cuts to Medicaid, SNAP, and related programs. I know firsthand that they don't just help families, they're often the only path to stability." Just last week, I was in Tucson, where Gabby and I live, helping distribute school lunches at a local high school. It's actually the high school that my wife went to. And I wanted to see firsthand what these summer meal programs mean for Arizona families. These programs are funded through the United States Department of Agriculture, and they rely on data from SNAP and Medicaid to identify the children who need them the most. If this bill passes, a bunch of these kids that I served, I think it was last weekend, they won't be eligible for these programs anymore. It will be harder for them to access school meals, which I think we all know it compromises their academic performance. That's the real cost of this legislation. It's not numbers on a spreadsheet. It's hunger. It's illness. It's fear. It's a bunch of folks who work really hard, doing everything right, and they're still going to get punched in the gut. And it's not just what I hear in person, Mr. President. My office gets hundreds of letters and phone calls every week from Arizonans. People are scared, and they want us to listen. I want to share some of their voices. Frank is a veteran on dialysis. He called this week, and he said, "The food bank and my SNAP benefits are the only way I eat right now. I can't work. I'm not old enough to retire, and I'm dipping into my retirement early just to keep up with my mortgage. Without this help, I don't know what I will do." Mr. President, veterans should never have to say those words in this country. One of the most sacred promises we make to the men and women who serve is that we will take care of them when they return home. That promise doesn't end when they hang up the uniform. It includes making sure that they can afford food, access health care, and live with some dignity. And yet, here's Frank, sick, struggling, and wondering how he'll survive because the programs he relies on are under threat. Cheryl from Tucson, who is a 59-year-old widow, said, "I receive disabled widows' benefits, Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP. Get this. She said, my rent and utilities eat all but about $300 of my monthly income. SNAP and my health care card used to cover most of my food costs. I used to have about $40 left over to buy some extra groceries for the unsheltered in my area. So here's a woman with $40 extra, and she's helping other people. She also says now buying food for my household takes all of it. I'm scared. If I lose even one of these benefits, I'll lose the grip that keeps the roof over my head. Karen from Scottsdale has worked for over 25 years helping veterans and people with disabilities. She wrote, many of the people I work with rely on Medicaid because they can only work part-time or because their employers don't offer benefits. Cutting them off will just make health care more expensive for everyone. The rich do not need an extension on tax cuts at the expense of low-income and middle-class families. Mr. President, these are my constituents. These are folks who, unprompted, took time to write or call their senator. And every single one of them, Mr. President, is saying the same thing. We're barely holding on, and we're scared this is going to put us over the edge. Now, I wish I could say that these stories were met with compassion by everybody here. But instead, one of my Republican colleagues apparently said, this is a quote, they'll get over it. And another, when asked whether cutting Medicaid would cost lives, said, well, we're all going to die anyway. Now, I didn't come here to throw jabs. I'm repeating those words because they reveal how this budget was written without any connection to the real-world consequences. This isn't about politics. It's about people. So I ask again, what are we doing here? Who do we serve? Is it people like Tara and Cheryl and Crystal and Frank who are working hard and doing everything right to just try to get by? Or is it a bunch of billionaires who've already made it and who don't need another handout? If my colleagues don't believe me, I urge them to go read some of the emails and listen to some of the phone calls that they're getting. Maybe hold a town hall. Listen to those folks. Really, listen to what they are saying. Don't crush their American dream. Don't rig the system even more against them. Don't take a vote just because it's easy. We can do better for the people we serve. Mr. President, they deserve that from us. Thank you, and I yield the floor.